This is a tutorial for questions 3 and 4 on page 432, and they're Doppler effect questions. In these questions, they're asking you, though, to calculate the velocity of the source or the velocity of sound. So they can be a little tricky in terms of manipulating the formula. And there are two ways you can do these questions. One, you can manipulate the formula and then solve, or two, you just plug the numbers in and solve. I definitely prefer the second way, just plugging the numbers in and then solving for the unknown variable. But I'll show you both methods so that you can decide which way you would like to do. And formula manipulation is never a bad thing. It's always good for you and your brain. So number 3 says an automobile is traveling toward you. If it's traveling toward you, then we know that we're going to have a minus sign in the bottom of the fraction there. When you measure the frequency of its horn, you obtain a value of 260. So which variable is that? That is the apparent frequency. So your apparent frequency is 260 hertz. The actual frequency is 240 hertz, which makes sense because if it's moving toward you, you will perceive a higher frequency. The sound waves will be hitting you faster, or more sound waves per second. Calculate the speed of sound in air. So the Vs is 25, and this is what we're calculating. Okay, this is the most difficult one. If you take this formula here, and you're solving that for V, you'll notice that there are two V's. So let's do it first with the formula manipulation, and then we'll do it the other way, which personally I prefer. But let's manipulate the formula and solve for V. And it can get quite tricky, so bear with me here. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is divide both sides by Fs. Okay, so now we've got the V's on one side. Now, you can't just magically move the Vs over here. You can't just do that because it's attached to the V. So what we're going to do here is we're actually going to cross multiply to get this. Okay. Now we've got rid of the fractions, which actually is not gonna make a difference. We're gonna be going back to fractions in a minute anyway. Now what we can do is we can distribute to get FV okay. All right, now we want to get, so you can see this is getting very complicated. And by the way, there are alternate ways to do this. They all turn out to be the same amount of work though. So now we've got a V on the left and we've got a V on the right, and we want to get them onto the same side of the equation. So we're going to take this one, move it over there, take this and move it over that side. So we're going to get this. I'm just going to move it over here so I'm close to the microphone. So we're going to get FV minus VFS equals FVS. Okay. And what we're going to do now, then this is the problem with having the two V's. Now we've got the two V's on the left side of the equation, and we can factor the V out. So we can factor it out of these two terms, leaving us with F minus Fs. And at that point, then we're going to divide both sides by this whole thing. And that's pretty much the answer to the question. So we get V equals F Vs over F minus Fs. Okay, and then you can plug the numbers in. 260, 25 over 260. Stick those into your calculator and pray that you get the right answer. 260 times 25 equals, divided by bracket 260 minus, why did I do that in my calculator, that last part? And you get the answer 325 meters per second. Okay, so that's the manipulation of the formula. That is definitely the hardest one. It's the hardest one because you have two V's in the equation and you have to get them together and then factor it out. Here is the way I would have done the question. Here's the second way. And in this case, it still ends up being a lot of work. So don't get me wrong, this is not infinitely easier. You end up doing the same operations. You're just doing with numbers now instead of variables. So this would be 260 V over V minus 25 times 240. And as I go through with numbers, you'll see it does end up being a little easier to do. So the first thing we would do here is divide both sides by 240. Cancels those ones out. 260 divided by 240 is 1.083 repeating. Equals that. And then we're going to cross multiply. So then you're going to get 1.038 repeating times V minus 25 equals V. And then you are going to proceed similar to the manipulation. You're going to distribute 1.83 repeating V minus times 25 equals 27.083 repeating V. Okay, and then you can see that it's very similar because now we're going to take this thing, move it over to that side, take this thing, move it over to that side. That's just one V. So when I subtract this one V from this guy, I'm just left with 0.083 repeating V equals 27.083 repeating. Divide both sides by 0, divided by 0.38.08333, and you get the same answer. All right. So as you can see, the second way, there's the second way right there. Just plugging the numbers in. Well, it's a little less convoluted and complicated than the first way, I would say. But they're both good. Number 4 says as a train moves away from you, away, so it's going to be plus. The frequency of the whistle is determined to be 475 hertz. So that is your apparent frequency. If the actual frequency, the frequency of the source is 500, makes sense. If it's moving away from you, then you hear a lower frequency. And the speed of sound is 350. What is the train speed? So this one gives you 350. Oh, it must be a smoking hot day. And they want to find this. Okay, so let's do it again with the formula manipulation. This time we're solving for Vs. So again, the first thing we're going to do is divide both sides by fs. And really, I mean, you can do that step, but really you could also just cross multiply. I do that step because people don't like cross multiplying from that first step. It makes them confused. But you could actually just cross multiply from the first step, because you can see in the next step we're going to cross multiply and you'll end up getting the same thing. So the first step is kind of unnecessary, but it just makes it a little more palatable, let's say. It makes it easier on the eyes to do the manipulation. So now we cross multiply. And at this point, you could distribute, but you don't really have to, because we're only solving for the VS there. So at this point, we can divide both sides by F. I just wrote it backwards, so I have my VS on the left side. And then you can see how it's pretty easy from here. We're just going to subtract the V from both sides. So minus V. And we end up getting VS equals V Fs over F minus V. And it's very important that you don't extend this line here over that one. Right? It's that minus V is not part of the fraction. So you have to write it like that. Let's plug in the numbers and see if we get the right answer. So V is 350 times that's 500 divided by 475 minus 350. So let's plug that in. 350 times 500 divided by 475 equals that, minus 350, and you get an answer of 18.4 meters per second. All right, and then the second way is, again, just to plug the numbers in. So here's our formula. It's a plus 475 equals 350 over 350 plus VS times 500. Okay, and let's see. Again, we'll just do this the most logical way, not maybe the fastest way, but the first thing you do in solving for this variable is divide both sides by 500. Divide by 500. 0.95 equals 350 over 350 plus VS. Cross multiply. And when you cross multiply, again, you don't have to distribute here. So I've crossed multiply, and I've got rid of all my fractions. Now I can divide both sides by 0.95. 350 divided by 0.95 is, so that's going to leave me with this equals 368.42. Subtract 350 from both sides, and you can see if you're going to get the same answer. Okay, and that's the one. Those are two ways you can do it. Now, also just to mention, you can do, once you've got these numbers in the formula right here in this step right here, There are different ways you can solve it. There are faster ways that you can solve it. I just did it in that way to show you all the steps. So some people will solve for VS there in a much more efficient way. I just wanted to do it to show you all of the steps without skipping or taking shortcuts. Okay, anyway, that's a 15-minute lesson for 2 questions. Good questions, though.